This is a panel on funding, and it's a panel that'll give you different perspective as to funders, what they look for, whether it's a particular genre. It'll give you a window into China as to how the mechanics of either co-productions or bringing your film to shoot entirely in China, how it works. And we're going to have each person introduce themselves and talk a little about their company. Dave?
Thank you, Corky.
Okay.
I'm Dave from Eggplant. We're basically a media house that occupies about 30,000 square feet, a couple blocks away from here. Our roots are in advertising division. We have a music and composition division, a music licensing division, a content division, and also a post-production facility. So our post-production facility basically does a lot of episodic work in television, a lot of stuff in Netflix, and does a lot of independent movies with independent producers. Our skill set there is basically maximizing your Canadian tax credits, accessing free grant money that you probably would not get on your own. We also try to bring sponsorship money to you guys through our advertising clients. Yeah, and I guess that's basically it.
There you go.
Ping, why don't you introduce yourself and tell them a little about you?
Hi, nice to be here today. Actually, I believe that we actually have some.
We dated.
No, I mean there's some project, Super League. I think we're post production. Yeah. Actually, I'm from China. Set up the studio for Yellow Mountain Studio, which has animation and live action film division. So I actually lived in Canada for many years, and then go back, set up a joint venture with the China Film Group for many years, and since 2014, I set up my own studio. Yeah. Thank you.
So I met Ping many years ago, and she invited me to speak at the first Beijing International Film Festival. And if any of you ever want to really understand how China works, you have to get to know them. You cannot go to China and not get to know them and think you're going to meet the right people and get funding. You have to know the right people. You have to spend some time with them. And I've developed, fortunately, great relationships with a lot of people, a lot because of Ping in Beijing, because of my friendship with people in China. And if you don't think China is going to could be a partner, within the year or next year, the film revenue from films shown in China will be greater than the United States. So think of that. Okay, Brian?
How everybody doing? Thanks for coming out. Brian Jalbert, Jalbert Brothers, independent TV and film producer out of Clearwater, Florida. So we're kind of first time in Toronto, so taking everything in, having a good time. As far as we go, me and my brother here started out high school dropouts, lower middle class. Yeah, like kind of came up from the ground up, put a lot of our own money into projects in the beginning to make it work. So we're very get it done, execution, and make it happen. So that's a little bit about us. We got a studio in Clearwater.
Okay. Okay, thank you. The first question that I want to throw out there is a general question about funding. Dave, when you talk about you can help people get grants and work out their credits, that's particular to Canada.
Yeah.
Okay, so if I have a movie and I'm going to spend some of my money in Canada, because we have a federal incentive that you can spend up to 25% in any foreign country. So if I say to you, I've got $2.5 million on a $10 million movie to spend, how do I go about doing it, and why should I do it, and what do I get for it?
First, I don't try.
No.
Hello?
Yeah.
Corky is right. We're geospecific to Canada and actually geospecific to Ontario. So Corky and I have had multiple conversations about different projects that have happened that he's maximizing the tax dollars in the U.S., the incentives in the U.S., and then we try to do it up here. For us, we are very specific on the Canadian tax credits, which most of it's a production service tax credit that we do with U.S. clients that are up here. We do have access to grants that can be up to $500,000 of free money that are non-participating. And we usually maximize our clients' post-production budgets when we go up here. Sponsorship dollars is something that we bring to the equation a lot that can be quite significant. We're doing commercials that are worth $2 million, which cracks me up compared to some of the film budgets that we see. So I find it's a moving target. Every project's different, and I've been trying to figure a lot of this stuff out with him, so which is great.
Okay, Ping, I know you're a Canadian citizen. Are you a passport?
Yes.
And so it gives you a window to come to Canada and partner with China and, Canada. So how would someone in the United States best use services and or get money for a project that really is a co-production or does involve China?
If it doesn't involve China, at this moment, I think that to have the co-production license is pretty difficult.
That I know.
Yeah. So, and also, even, it's harder for the market to kind of, get familiar or pick up for Chinese market. Yeah. So basically, either you have to get imported, like, yeah.
Okay, so I am fortunate. So I would say to you, Ping, I have a project. The project is about a police department in Beijing. There's an inspector, and there is a person for the intelligence service in the United States who's been investigating a drug trafficking and a gang that does the drug trafficking, and they find themselves in Beijing. They've traveled all to Beijing. So the intelligence people have to go to Beijing, but use the inspector of the Beijing Police Department to help solve the crime and figure out what's going on. How would we navigate something like that?
Nowadays, because the political in America and China are very sensitive, so normally, like those kind of story, we may put it like a Hong Kong or Macau, rather than the Chinese police office have to be, accurate from the censorship. Yeah.
So, do you see what she's saying? Not to be a political commentary, but because of who is in office in the United States, we are not as welcome in China, to put it bluntly, than we have been in the past. Regardless, that's going to change at some point in time, and I think that all of you in this business should try and go to Beijing. It's the most capitalistic country in the entire world, even though it's communist. It's a very capitalist, beautiful, friendly country. Brian, how do you decide and when do you decide whether you want to get involved in helping to find funding for movies? If a project comes to you, what kind of genre? What do you like? Does it have to film in Florida?
I think the biggest thing for me is looking at the people involved. So, and also I look for a hook. So it's like, what's the hook in the project? what can we play off of? You can do that with the name actor. You can do that with, like, we do a lot of horror paranormal. So if we do Ouija board confessions, like, I can play off of the Ouija board aspect as a hook to hit the target market. So I'm looking for things like that can emotionally connect with somebody with, so I know in my end game where I'm going with it.
So if I get an actor that has 4 million followers worldwide.
That's a good start.
Okay, well, we're going to build upon that. And I have a distributor that comes on board that will promise you distribution with a wide range of screens because of the attraction of their one actress. Is that another piece?
I mean, it all helps. Then it's depending on what is the project. Okay, you got this project, right? Is it horror? And then who's the actor involved in it? Is their market even going to go to that?
Well, why just horror?
That's where we're at right now.
Okay.
We're going to dabble in some different things. We got a couple projects we're working on now that are more action-based. I got an action project we're working on, and then I got another movie called The Game that we're fundraising for now. So it's having the project that resonates with me or the person you're going to. Or, okay, so we're talking about this. If you got a documentary on food, right? You got a food doc, and you got to find somebody that's passionate about whether it's plant-based diet. I know a guy that did a documentary on plant-based diet, and he found funding through them because the project emotionally touched the person. They didn't care about the money they got back, but they cared about getting the word out about, because they had cancer, right? And they were able to help fight that through the food doc. So it's getting that word out, emotionally connecting with somebody, and being able to hit that audience, I think, in the end. You know, it's where's our end game goal, and then work back.
Okay. Yes. Could someone give him a microphone?
Hi, just a quick question. Chris Violette, thanks for being here. As independent filmmakers, we always try and get that kind of advice of right within your budget. You don't want to shoot a $2 million movie with $200,000. As independent filmmakers, I just want to ask a quick question, and with regards to horror and or action. What's a realistic, and I'm not, why ask for $250,000? You might as well just ask for $5 million. But as independent filmmakers, when you're talking to anybody with regards to grants or anything, what's a realistic budget that wouldn't be, someone would look at and go, okay, that's impossible. I'm not giving them $10 million. But I've always thought that somewhere in the $1 to $2 million range, you can make a decent independent picture with. I've been on sets where it's been $1 million, and you see the product come out, and it does look like a $5 million movie. But I've also seen $1 million budgets look like $200,000 movies. So for yourselves, what's a realistic number that wouldn't?
Well, those movies that are distributed in the range of $3 to $5 million, over 90% turn a profit. Because the marketing money in the budget meets perfectly the budget of that movie. So there are studies and things. And look, in the New York Times, this is in the New York Times, there was an article that said because of the federal and the state incentives in the United States, this is what the New York Times said, investing in film now is a conservative investment. Now, whoever thought that the New York Times would say investing in film is a conservative investment? But they did, and there's an article that I could send anyone that really says that. So at the end of the day, I am fortunate that we have a federal incentive in the United States that allows us to spend 25% in any foreign country. I could go to China and go to Ping and say, look, I got $2.5 million on a $10 million budget. How are you going to help me maximize my benefits of spending $2.5 million of that in China? What do I get? Do I get incentives? Do I get benefits?
Well, in China, I think right now there's no actually benefit or tax credit. But once you get approval, then the film can be possibly released on, I think next year there are going to be 80,000 screens.
Oh.
So that's once you get on screen, you have a profit.
Yeah. Well, so Ping talked about a company called China Film Group. And China Film Group, if I'm not mistaken, helps fund and distribute movies. Okay. And they're a government arm. But how smart they are is they only invest the amount of money that they're confident that the theaters that it shows in China will generate. So if they think that the theaters will generate $2 million in China, they'll invest $2 million in China. And then on opening weekend, they get $1 million of tickets and pass them out for free. And so they get $1 million worth of people to come. But they will only invest up to the amount of money that they are confident that they will get back when it shows in China theaters. So you cannot, or you should not, again, during the current political climate, you should not think that if you're in the United States that you can go to China and get true benefits. But all of you in Canada, you should go to Beijing, and you're welcome there. You haven't ticked off the chairman of China, and they haven't excommunicated China from their friends. But really, you must consider China as a true ally. Dave.
I was just going to comment to that. We've done wicked properties where the budget is $1 million, rocks. Most of our indies are kind of between $1 to $5 million. I find the difference is basically the cast or visual effects, and that's when it can get a little bit nasty. But for the most part, especially if you're up here in Canada and we're supporting with stuff, $1 million actually can get you a decent product if you have a great script. I have one question for Ping that Corky's bringing up. I heard it's tough to get your money out of China.
Actually, if it's a co-production, the money is allowed to come out to China, but there is income tax you have to pay first, which is pretty high.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How does that? Sorry, how does that work?
Just you have to prepay the income tax, which is probably close to 20-25%. Yeah.
All right. There's a question.
Hi, this question's for Ping.
Could you stand up, please?
Yes, of course. Hi, I'm just curious. I've had a friend encounter an issue where he got rejected funding because his budget was closer to the $3 to $5 million range, and he was talking to Chinese investors. They were looking for a $20 to $50 million film, and so when he said, "I don't need that much money," I'm curious if you're looking at investment in China, would you consider the $5 million or less kind of range?
Actually, for the foreign film, the working with foreign film people because the Chinese market, the big foreign film can come to China is like Hollywood, studio films. So if you have a small budget, then you hardly compete in China with those films. But like I say, if the script is really smart, it still can get funded in China. Yeah, I don't think that's the issue. Yeah.
There's a question. Okay, yeah.
Sort of piggybacking on that one, it's not about getting money from China, it's getting into China. I mean, Corky's talking rosy, anybody walks in, but my understanding is, unless it's a major feature film starring Russell Crowe, as Corky just mentioned the other day, or just this morning, they're not going to distribute your film. So what's the likelihood of a budgeted coming out of Canada between $1 and $5 million with relatively no names getting into China And then on a caveat to that, what is the benefit of having some kind of, whether it's an actual Chinese actor in the film or somebody that's seen as Chinese, like a Jackie Chan being in the film?
Well, I think that really, because China every year produce like over 1,000 films, and only certain percentage release in China. Most of Chinese film actually couldn't get a chance to release in China as well. You are compete with the big box, features. If you have a small, low budget, I personally think it works really just as any market. But since there's no casting, no famous director, you have to approve with a real good quality film. I think it still got a chance that, for the independent filmmakers, that's actually is good to try, but it's not easy because the political issue approve system is a lot of paperwork. Yeah.
But again, just to go back to having a Chinese cast member, because people of different ethnicities like to see their own selves being represented on the screen. So if you're writing a script, you say, do I put a Latino in there, or do I put a Chinese person in there, or whatever? Would it sway somebody? I'll continue. I'll stand back up again.
You just repeat that question for the online audience, please, sir.
Beneficial coming from the Chinese. Oh, starting. Okay, sorry. I want to just reiterate or reestablish my question that I had earlier. The second part of it is it beneficial to have that lower budgeted film have a Chinese character as one of the main cast members? So again, the people in the know or the approval process in China say, we've got all these movies with Leonardo DiCaprio in it, but we don't have a main Chinese character. But this small film from Canada, which has got a $2 million budget, one of the main characters is Chinese. So is that sway to have more likelihood be distributed?
There's a minimum requirement that all the co-production film has a certain percentage of Chinese actor in. You have to fulfill that request. So because it's co-production, normally like Canadians or Americans, they want, I want to see my film also works outside China, right? Because it depends on deals. So there's a balance for the casting. Normally, Chinese will insist that we're going to have more Chinese casting. But if foreign part has a famous one, they prefer for sure that they have both. Yeah.
There is a question. Did someone have a question? Oh, the same question? Okay. Okay.
We were talking briefly, with $10 million budget, you got 25% to spend, you got a $2.5 million budget. As an actor who's been working around in Canada now, I see a lot more with different provinces you work in. A lot of productions want to hire locally because the provinces give them tax credits. Now, if I'm trying to get a U.S. investor involved, just basically who makes that decision? I know some large U.S. productions come here, and the tax credits for hiring Canadian actors are quite enormous. They're a little bit bigger in the couple hundreds of thousands or even low thousands. But some independent features, the tax credits are a lot smaller. Now, who determines that? Is that in a negotiation process when we're sitting down with the investors and the executive producers, or is that something that's provincial
in the United States or
federal? Probably most likely would be in Canada. If you're coming as a U.S. Investor to Canada, we're discussing what kind of tax credits we would get and which best suits the film. Who decides that? Is that us in the...
All right, I can give you an example. I think that it answers your question. I got a call from that certain person that you heard about at the first meeting, at the first conference. And he said to me, we're going to make this movie in Australia. I'm going to direct it. I'm going to star in it. And it's a drama. And we got Danny DeVito and a few other people. And it's a $14 million project in Australia. So I'm using that as an example. Because of the Australian credits and incentives, the budget is reduced to $10 million because you get a $4 million rebate. It's a 40%. So now we're at $10 million. If the United States taxpayers pay the below-the-line actors in Australian money, the dollar's worth $1.40 in Australia. So we get another 40% discount on every dollar that we pay. So now the budget is down to $7.5 million. And could I get an investors for that? You're darn right I can. Okay, so it's working the numbers. It's really a numbers game. So I will not get involved in any movie that I cannot get a completion bond in, because I cannot tell the investors that I may get to be involved in movies that I work on that they'll have a completed movie, because the completion bond guarantees the completion of a movie. You pay a premium, and if for whatever reason you go over budget, the bonding company comes in and pays the balance. They'll kick off the producers, but they'll protect the money. All right. And you cannot get a completion bond on any movie whose budget is less than $1.5 million, because they won't take a risk. So I usually, if I'm protecting the money on my clients' movies, because that's what I do, whether they're investors I get or they get, my job is to make their investors happy. I mean, all of us, okay? And the only way I can do that is, one, we have a completion bond. I can guarantee the completion movie. And two, I will not spend any dollar of the investment until we reach 70% of what they want to raise. I'll escrow every dollar until we reach 70%. So they're going to know. They're not first in, first out. We got to collect within a period of time 70%. And we're going to make sure that you're guaranteed to get the film done. And that's why someone asked me, well, would you work on a $500,000 movie? I said, I can't. I mean, yes, I could, but I can't. Because regardless if it's nobody's fault, a lot of movies go over budget. And it's nobody's fault. They just do. And to get the extra money to finish your movie, if you don't have a bond to cover it, is almost impossible. And if you do, it's outrageously expensive. Does that answer your question?
Yeah,
Okay.
I might actually add to that. Most of the movies we do don't have bonds. So I think it's basically from an investor's perspective, where every province is extremely complicated. I think Manitoba has the best tax credits right now. Ontario, Quebec, and Vancouver basically compete. But yeah, it's a tricky question, and a lot of producers question where they should be shooting. I think location's key. And then, yeah, who the post is.
But Dave, that's Canada.
That is just Canada.
Okay. All right. Wait. So we have this discussion.
We argue all the time.
Canada is a phenomenal place to live and make your movies. They are the most friendly country for the arts, without saying. I mean, I know someone that does documentaries, and she's an award-winning documentarian. And she is making a movie now on youth mental health and suicide, which is a pandemic in the United States. I'm sure it is here. But she has a budget, and she got every dollar for her budget from various places and companies and government branches in Canada. We don't have that. We really don't tap in to that. You've got Manitoba. Kim, could you stand up? Give him a mic. Kim, stand up. Okay. This is Kim Johnston. He lives in Winnipeg. And when you talked about Manitoba, okay, would you stand up and tell them about Manitoba and what you can do by...
It's a province just west of here. I actually, about 25 years ago, I helped write the film policy for the province. And what evolved eventually was a tax credit that amounts to about 55% of expenditures on Manitoba goods and services. And so if you hire a Manitoba actor or director or whatever, in terms of labor, you were looking at about a 55% rebate. That can actually be enhanced if you shoot out of the city, major centers in rural areas, to up to about 60%. So you have an option also of, for a project. Either you go on the labor side, or you can go and take a 30% rebate on the entire expenditures in Manitoba. So that would include hotels and anything that, any cost that was incurred in the province, including labor.
Do they still have the 3-picture deal if you do 3 pictures?
There's an incentive that's included in the 60. There's an incentive if you, on your third project, you get an extra 5% rebate for coming back. So it's like frequent flyer plan of sorts. Yeah. So it's very attractive, and it seems it's working very well for the province. So the business is very busy there, and a lot of return business, and it's growing and it's developing. Yeah.
So if you want to ever shoot in Manitoba, this is the gentleman that you need to really contact, because I don't know anyone as well connected in that province as Kim, and I'm sure he'll be very happy to give his contact information to the whole house. But we are here to tell you that there are funding. All right? Canada has an ability on certain particular projects, probably not what you talked about, the gentleman over there, on the small budget. But if you're blessed enough to have the kind of project that in Canada that China would welcome and help, you can get the benefits of going to China and to get funding. I would love to have Dave say to us that he'd consider helping to fund or get funding for films outside of Canada, but he hasn't said that, and I don't know if he's ready to say that.
I will take U.S. work, just so you know. No, we do a lot of U.S. Content all the time with different production service tax credits and stuff like that. So with you never go for tax credits, right? You just make a wicked product and sell it, and
No,
not you.
Yeah, Brian, you've got a niche that you feel comfortable doing, and it's not. I don't think it's caring about the funding as much as the genre of the product, because you know you can sell it, right?
Exactly. Yes.
Right. And so you have a brand, and your brand is a particular genre, horror, and I don't care what kind of budget it is, because you can make a lot of money on $1 million horror movie, and you can do them time and time and time again. And so if anyone wants a horror movie, go to...
I got you. The Jalbert brothers.
Okay, all right, but I would hope at some point, as you become multi successful, that you will venture into a different area and
You don't like blood?
no,
Okay.
No, I don't watch horror movies.
All right.
Okay, and come. Well, actually, there's a movie that was about, and I forget the title, about a lady that got married, and she's with this family that they pick a card, and on the wedding night they what? What? Yeah. So you got to see this movie. Now, I don't like horror movies, but this movie is outrageous, and I saw it, and the last scene, as the bride lived through the most horrific circumstances anyone could be put through. What?
They're telling you to shut up.
Okay. She says at the end of the movie, no. Okay.
You know what's messed up? I've never seen that movie. You've seen it. I've never seen it.
Okay.
And I'm the horror guy.
Okay, but it's not a horror movie. Okay. All right. So, but it's really making a ton of money. When can I expect you to tell me I'm willing to extend my brand to another area?
Right now.
Okay, see? Okay, well, look, I will take a couple final questions, and then we'll break for lunch, and we come back here at 1:15 for the distribution and sales panel. But, okay, yes? We got a mic here? Oh.
Hi. One more question for Dave. I'm curious about your experience with the NOHFC and any advice you have about it. Oh, sorry. Yes. I'll let you explain.
It's a Northern Heritage Fund. Yeah, we recently were approved for the North. We set up an office up there. For them, if you do a qualified spend in the North, they'll give you $500,000 free, no participation, anything exists. You can still qualify for all the other Canadian tax credits, but there's a slight grind down. But super attractive. We're up there with the MP of Finance a while ago. They're trying to encourage youth to stay in the city. They want to make it a more vibrant economy, and they're behind it, but they're not going to be behind it forever. So I bet you in 3 or 4 years it'll be gone. So. No, we have actually been approached by different U.S. companies to do production, and we can still take it up there.
Yeah.
Yep.
A couple of my clients are doing that. There's a question. Okay, yes.
Hey. Question for Dave as well. In terms of, like, you were talking about some, like, finding money in different places for Canadian work. Just wondering if it's, as someone who specializes also in the action genre, is it, to what degree do you have, like, amounts of money, 1 to 5 million, 5 to 10 million, sort of financial options available to you, or is it more based on style? Is it like, you know, because we're so trend oriented now, do you sort of have fluctuating, I suppose, is it, yeah, that's, if that makes sense.
We love getting involved with the producers right at the beginning. I find if people come to us and go, hey, can you quote this job? We're not giving you an advantage, you're not giving us an advantage. We like working with someone like you where it's like we grind down through your entire budget and figure out the best ways of doing it. I'm not sure there's a perfect answer to that. The North is something that we talk about, which is real money that moves and exists. All the other tax credits that you're probably aware of are still there. For us, I think one benefit that we bring is that we're full service. I try to bring everything in the production into it. I try to bring the music into it. I try to bring licensing into it. I try to bring sponsorship into it. So it's more collaboration with you. You tell me what the project is, me telling you what I can do, and just trying to figure it out together.
All right. Is there a final question? All right. Do you want to make a final comment? Okay. I can tell you that I spend in my budgets as close to 25% of every budget in Canada because I can match and marry your incentives best than any other country with the incentives we have in the United States. So you're a great ally to me on my movies, but at the end of the day, you should consider the fact that we in the United States, if you're fortunate enough to get taxpayers who are investors in the United States, whether they live in the United States or not, if they pay tax in the United States, and you spend the money in a good state in the United States and spend your 25% in Canada, you can give your investor a recovery of their money without any business the film does of 76 cents on every dollar. And there's no other business that you can do that for. So thank you. And we have a pitch contest. We have more panels at 1:15, distribution and sales. And we have a pitch contest after this, sponsored by Raindance from 5 to 7. And then stay around for the party from 7 to 11. Thank you.